Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Catherine Horaire. I'm a business and PR strategist for artists and creative entrepreneurs, founder of The Artist Entrepreneur. And I am happy to be here today to introduce you to a colleague and friend. We met, oh my God, I think it's been 10 years. Has it been 10 years? We met in Paris while we were both studying at Christie's. I'm very pleased today to introduce you to Laetitia Lina, who is now living in the US. She's an art advisor, and she also offers consulting services to artists in the NYC area. Hi, Laetitia. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Catherine. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you decided to become an art advisor, because the artists who are listening to us today, I know that a lot of them are curious to better understand what an art advisor really does, right? And if they can start working with an art advisor to grow their sales. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came about to become an art advisor.
Yeah, so after graduating from Christie's Education and doing various internships at Christie's Auction House in Paris, I got a job as a gallery manager in a contemporary gallery in London. I think that was 2007. That allowed me to discover the contemporary art market. So I organized and co-curated solo and group shows of emerging artists, painting, sculpture, video, performance, a lot of very different things. And I obviously had to liaise with artists and collaborate with curators and museums. I conducted all the sales, negotiation with the clients, the collectors. I was also in charge of the press relation, marketing, website management. So as you can hear, it's very broad, and it allowed me to learn a lot of different skills related to managing the gallery, but also the career of the artist represented by the gallery. We also participated to a lot of international art fairs in Dubai, in Brussels, in Paris, in New York. So eventually I had enough knowledge and experience, and most importantly, I had the contacts, the artists on one side and the collectors on the other side, to set up my own art advisory company. So, which I did in 2011 in London. And a couple of years later, in 2014, I moved to New York and I set up another company doing the same thing. So I ended up with two platforms, one in London and one in New York, consulting private collectors, corporation, institution, non-for-profit, which leads me to your second question. So what do I do?
I think it's like we kind of understand, a lot of people know that there are art consultants, art advisors out there, but I think there's some misconception of like who they're really serving, right? Who their clients are, because your clients are not artists, right? Your clients are the collectors.
Exactly. So the private collector, sometimes I also work with galleries and dealers. Sometimes they are my clients because they're looking for a specific type of artwork for clients over there. So they are my clients. I have to develop, it takes several years to develop a trusting relationship with them so that they trust me and we can work together for a long time. But it takes a lot of work to get to know them and to get them to trust me. So what I do, the main role is really to provide advice on the acquisition and the sale of artworks. So it can be researching and locating specific artworks according to what the collector wants, or it could be commissioning artworks. It can be also sourcing and selecting artwork from artist studios. It can involve organizing studio visits for collectors. All that is under the same umbrella, and it's all for the sake of serving collectors and sometimes dealers, but and
Mostly
corporation.
collectors. So
Yeah,
collectors, either private collectors or corporate.
corporate, exactly.
So in your case, I think that's the case of many consultants because you can't be an expert on everything. So in your case, you've developed specific niches that you serve your clients with. Can you tell us a
Exactly.
little bit about that?
Yes. So I deal a lot of contemporary art and post-war in general, but a couple of years ago, I learned a lot about the Italian post-war. It was in 2008. Back then, it was not a very big niche or market at all. It was barely emerging outside of Italy. And I just developed a taste for it, and I learned a lot about it. And eventually, galleries in London and then in New York started exhibiting more and more Italian artists, and Christie's and Sotheby's jumped in, and that part of the market started developing really fast. So I jumped in the wagon, and here am I. And I'm specialized, like I would say maybe 50% of the art I select and I look for is Italian post-war art.
Okay. And the other 50% is working with emerging artists who are right now
Right.
on the market.
Definitely. Yes, exactly.
Okay. So this, like, I think, like when you said I put collectors and artists, bring artists together, organize studio visits, I can already like hear artists who are listening to this and saying, oh my God, like how can I get into this? Like, how can I start working with art consultants so they can organize studio visits and bring buyers to me, right? But then again, right, you have to be a good fit for the type of clientele that you are serving, right?
Exactly.
So you really work with a specific type of collector, and then you will make sure, like you said, you build trust with them over a long period of time. We all know that art sales are very long sales cycles, right? It takes a long time, but also as you build that trust, you need to make sure that you understand their tastes so that you don't present them things that are not what they're looking for, right? So so not all artists will be a good fit for you, but it doesn't mean that if they're not a good fit for you, they're not a good fit to someone else, right? So for people who are listening, artists who are listening and they're like, oh, how do I reach out to an art consultant or art advisor? You have a lot of artists who reach out to you to work with you. What have you seen that are good ways and not so good ways to reach out to an art advisor?
So I'll start with a not so good way because that will probably.
Great.
I would say in general problems are poorly formatted emails with multiple font colors, images all over the place, wrong spelling of my name, non-personalized email. Like I have no clue why they're emailing me. They're just sending me like 2 pictures and 1 line, or like no theme, no topic, no like engaging with me.
Oh, I love that, because this applies before you and I, Laetitia, just to give a story to people who are watching, both you and I, before doing the Christie's course and working in the art market, have some PR and marketing experience, right?
Yeah.
And what you're saying not only applies to when you're pitching to an art consultant, it applies to when you're pitching to anyone. Nobody wants to receive a copy pasted email that is something that's been sent out to like 20 people who hasn't been personalized. And come on, like making sure that you spell the person's name right. I mean, I see that all the time. You want to be taken serious as an artist, but first you need to take yourself seriously, right? And present yourself in a professional manner. So yes, I love that. I love that advice. It's so true.
Just looking at the art advisor website and looking like what are the artists he sells, what is he doing, and then like pick 1 or 2 questions, and you need to have like a topic, some kind of like catchy sentence in your email saying why you're emailing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because again, you're not in the business of recruiting artists.
Right.
That's not your job, right?
Yeah.
So it's a privilege to be part of your circle. It's a privilege to be introduced to your trusted circle. So you need to make sure that you, as an artist, position yourself as like, wow, I've seen what you're doing. I love it. Do you bring on new artists? This is the work I do. I think there's a fit with the type of collectors you seem to be serving, right? You need to be clear about why you're reaching out. And not only that, like why you would be a great addition to Laetitia's team, actually.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then you also need to persevere. If the first email you don't get an answer right away, it doesn't mean that your work is not relevant to me, or is not, it might be just not the right timing, because it works very much in terms of timing. So if I decide that my collectors is looking for something different, this is not going to be a good fit. So if I show him the work, I'm going to lose credibility, because it's going to be like, I asked you for something else. So what is your problem?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So you have to persevere, and it can't stop at like after the first or the second email or meeting. You have to follow up. And that's why newsletter, I mean, I'm sure you talk a lot about newsletter, but newsletter are important. And if you send, I have one of my artists I've been following, so maybe 3 or 4 newsletter a year. I think that's a perfect amount. They have to be very concise with all the information you want, maybe one main image in the email, links to several exhibitions with installation shots. So you have different ways to appreciate, to look at the artwork.
High quality photos.
High quality photo. Thank you very much. Yes, very important.
Yes.
With all the details about the work. If you can include the price, even better for the advisor. It's great if you can include the price, because I don't have to shoot you another email about what's your price range and how much do you sell for. And it's just be very honest, very direct.
Yeah. And press, right? You quickly mentioned press.
And the press, very important. Yeah, if you can include the links to the article, or if they are no longer online, then you do PDF, short, not a heavy one. Don't send a big file, because that's also a problem. But yeah, press is really important.
Because this is giving you tools. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but this is giving you tools, Laetitia. The artist is basically helping you serve your client, right? Because when you're going to present a new artist to the client, you need to sell the idea that this is a good investment. Exactly. So knowing which shows they did, knowing the press they got, being able to present high quality photos makes your job easier. And if it's not there, then you have a bunch of other artists that you could present instead, and you're just going to go and present whoever you have the material.
Yeah, definitely. So if there's anything worth mentioning, like your work has been seen by a curator from a museum, it's a famous museum, or it's even take a selfie with the curator and something like.
How about if it's part of another prestigious collection, let's say a corporate collection or a well-known family that buys work, should that also be mentioned?
Yeah, definitely. Anything, corporate collection, private collection, if you're allowed to mention the name, even better. In the same way that museum, institution, anything non-commercial. I mean, of course, you include your recent exhibitions, but everything else, if you wrote anything, if you published anything, articles, catalogs.
That should also be on your website, but you need to make it easy for the art consultant to access everything. They shouldn't have to go through hunting through your website to be able to gather everything.
Can include links, very clearly labeled.
Yeah.
That's the best. Those are the best.
Well. Okay. So links. And I like what you said about the newsletter, because this interview is part of a bigger module on social media and on emails. And a lot of artists feel like, oh, well, email marketing that's salesy, it's pushy. I don't want to bother people. And really, my point of view on this is if you want to do it monthly or bi-monthly or 4 times a year, right? It's not sending an email every day, but it's making sure that you are top of mind, right, with your prospects.
Definitely, yeah. Better to send it not as often, but to have all the information, because the risk is if you send too many emails, eventually I'm going to send an email back and say, I'm sorry, I'm no longer interested. Please do not email me further.
Yes. And I think also that in some instances, it's worth sometimes having 2 different lists. And that's often what I recommend to artists. So for your followers, right, you can have a list that you email them like once a month, what's new, what's going on, right? Your fans, to turn them eventually from fans to buyers. So that's one thing. If you're selling direct, that's one thing. But then if you have a network of partners that you want to grow, art advisors, designers, galleries, things like that, that should not be as often, right? Those are people you just want to stay top of mind with, maybe a quarterly email, because, and I just want to emphasize something you said earlier, because I hear that in so many circumstances, that timing is super important, right? So one quarter, you don't have, they're not on your radar because that's not what you're working on. But then next quarter, suddenly,
could be. Yeah,
it could be.
Very
Exactly.
much.
So if you give up, you're missing that opportunity.
Definitely.
So anything else that you've heard or seen that are good or not good in terms of working or connecting with art advisors?
I would say also my other advice would be try to contact the advisor that are first in your area, like local. Go local, establish a relationship with people who are accessible and around you. Meet them, make yourself available, and make sure they remember you. And just make sure, follow up your meeting with an email, make plans for the next meeting, be flexible, open-minded, and all that eventually can lead to another contact elsewhere that's going to get you a commission. But the personal contact you have, your local network, is very important.
Yes, I totally agree with you, especially considering, especially when we're talking about corporate collections, right? A lot of companies will have as a policy, right, to have artists that are local artists, right? Before buying work from artists, international artists, right? Many of them, I know in Canada that's huge, especially because we have tax breaks if you buy living Canadian artists. But even when I was talking to another art consultant in the US, she was telling us like a lot of companies want to buy artists that support the local art scene before growing. And also it depends on the size of the business and also what their policy is. But you're absolutely right. Like, start local, and that applies if you want to work with designer, art advisors, and even art galleries, right? And then I'm hearing artists who are saying, they're listening to this and they say, yeah, but there aren't any galleries in my area. There aren't any art advisors in my area. And to that, I want to answer, I'm certain it's not true. You need to research, because art consultants are kind of I don't know how to say it, but you're not very visible, right? It's not something that, you just Google art consultants and you'll find a list.
Yeah. You might have to talk to galleries. You might have to talk to other people to find them and ask for them.
Yes.
That's why I think, the local gallery is really, really important. Not only it's going to give you other contacts in terms of curators, art advisors, but also the other thing I wanted to say, the best way to be spotted by a medium or really good gallery is to be already in a gallery.
Yes.
If you're
Yes.
already represented by the gallery, you have 50% merchant that another gallery is going to be interested in you.
Exactly.
So
It's like
starting
looking for a
small.
job when you have a
Exactly.
job.
Right. Exactly.
So sometimes maybe you get into a gallery and it's not your dream gallery,
Right.
but you can see it as a stepping stone to something better.
Yeah, exactly. And it also gives you a chance to, I mean, I can see, I'm in New York City, artists don't have access, all artists don't have access to galleries. So a lot of them ended up renting spaces. Renting a space is really expensive. They're taking a lot of risk financially. If you have access to a local gallery that allows you to exhibit your art for free, I think you have it's a no-brainer. You just go for it. And of course, it might not be your dream gallery, it might not be perfect, but you make sure you select the best work for that show. You get really good pictures taken. You're gonna go on your website, they're gonna go in your emails, newsletter. It's, as you were saying, it's a stepping stone towards
Yeah,
something.
and then you can pitch the show to a few local media, you get a little bit of press, and then you start building the foundations of your business. You know, a lot of artists tell me, well, what is this thing about galleries taking 50%? This is like, I don't want to be giving 50% of my commission. And I always like, I want artists to really grasp what you just said because it's so important. If for any reason, okay, first, gallery representation, I don't think that you have to do your whole business model around gallery representation, but gallery representation still adds a lot of credibility to your art practice, right? They're still there for a reason, and a big part of that reason is number one, for the credibility, and second, for the investment they will make in you to help you grow your business. Now, if you don't want to go the gallery route and you want to do your own thing, well, Laetitia just said it, it's going to be very expensive. So the 50% that you're not going to give to the gallery, consider that you're going to invest it in your business, basically, right? Because the cost that the gallery would have taken, the cost that they would invest, right, in marketing material, in having staff,
the catalog,
the catalog, the overhead, the staff, right? There's always staff.
Training the staff.
Yeah, getting you maybe some publicity, all of that, right? All the money they invest in making sure that the show is a success, right? And sometimes it's not a financial success. Sometimes it's a visibility success, or, you know, because the first shows, they just need to get your name out there. So if you don't want to give somebody 50% to do that for you, you have to be willing to invest to do and to get those people, because if you're going to rent a space, if you're going to get a photographer, if you're going to get a copywriter, right, to write the text, if you're going to get someone to do PR for you, because a lot of artists say, well, I can't do it all by myself. No, you can do it all by yourself. That's why it's called a business, right? It's because you get other people to support you, right?
You need a network. You need those people to eventually be successful. You can't do it on your own. It's impossible.
No, exactly. And building the same way you did, right? You builded a network, like you said at the beginning, of trusted partners, people you know that you can go to to curate artwork for your clients, and then a circle of clients who know that you understand their needs and that you can follow through. So, and I love what you said about getting noticed by galleries. Absolutely, get into a gallery, get into a first gallery, and then you'll grow, right? Go into any blue chip gallery website, look at the resume of the artists that are there. This is not their first gallery representation, right? So the blue chip galleries are known for poaching artists from smaller galleries, medium-sized galleries, and then the medium-sized galleries, they poach from the small galleries.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the way it goes.
Exactly. So unless you're one of the very few lucky ones that get picked right off school, right at the right when you finish your MFA, which rarely happens anymore. You're gonna have to go through the different steps, and it doesn't mean that you have to do that in silo, right? That you're only doing that. You can be doing other things. Don't just wait for things to happen. But the process of the gallery is a step-by-step process.
Also allows you to learn about, as an artist, you'll get a contract with the gallery. So there are so many different types of contracts. So when eventually you get to like the medium of a bigger gallery, you want to know all those clauses, all those contracts, what is best for you, how you work best. So that's why starting with a small gallery is actually good, because it leaves you enough time to understand how the gallery works and what works best for you.
Yeah, what works best, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Make a few mistakes along the way, which we all do, right? But they don't hurt so much, those mistakes, when you're going at it step by step, right? So and this leads me, just one more question I had for you about, because this is a workshop we were talking about also some social media. We talked earlier about email marketing. So how important, because you talked about that you have these, you've built your business around trust and building relationships, which is something that I cannot stress how important that is when you have a business. You can't just think that it's going to happen hiding in your studio, right? You need to meet people, and people need to meet you. But how important is the online brand when artists are reaching out to galleries or to art advisors like you? How important is that?
It's very, very important. I mean, as you were saying, all my partners, buyers come from a network that's acquired thanks to recommendation, word of mouth, slowly grew. That's one thing. But from the outside, when I want to acquire new collectors or when I want to collaborate with new artists, I have to make sure that my online brand is very consistent. So what I have on my website, what I have on my social media, on Instagram, is aligned with what I have on my website. Then they can look at all those media, or they can look at only Instagram, and they know what I'm about. Mm-hmm. It has to be the same theme, it has to be the same style, it has to be consistent. That's one big advice I would give. You can't have like suddenly in the middle of nowhere a picture of like your mom, or a picture of your favorite food, or a picture of your baby.
Yeah.
Occasionally you can have, some of the artists have like a picture of themselves with a collector, or with someone else, or
in the studio.
Or like something, I don't know, a bit different and not about the artwork itself. That's fine, it's totally fine. But it still has to be under the same umbrella and be relevant to your message.
Yes, I love the word relevant, right? Because you can still tell stories. You can still share experiences. Actually, you should tell stories, right? Because people love storytelling and it makes them understand better what your work is about.
Yeah.
But it needs to be relevant. If it isn't part of, if it doesn't, that's what I was talking about in the workshop, like have pillars or themes, right? When you're communicating, and you're always repeating those themes. Otherwise, and to tell you the truth, people don't like surprises, right? So like if they don't understand what you're saying, they're not gonna spend a minute trying to understand it. They're just gonna leave, right? If it's not it doesn't work well together, if it's not on brand, and if it doesn't help me build trust, right? If I'm seeing things and I'm like, oh, what is this? Like, this is is he professional, or is this still a hobbyist? Like, or
Yeah.
is she doing this seriously, or is she doing this plus sharing recipes? So like, I don't understand, because most artists have another job, right? And that's totally fine. But if you're doing other things, like if you're also a bartender or a chef, or I don't know what else you could be doing, but if like, have a separate Instagram account and share that under another name, or if you want to share pictures of, you know, your kids starting school and what you're putting in their healthy lunchbox. It's not because you're an artist that you stop being a mother or a brother or whatever, but it doesn't have to be presented all together if it doesn't, if it's not aligned with your brand. Just make sure that it's aligned with your brand, because otherwise people who are who might be interested in working with you will run away.
Yeah, they'll be confused and eventually they'll run away. And the other advice I would give is, whenever you post something, engage with your audience. Like, ask questions. What do you think about that? How about that? Are you surprised by that? Even small questions, eventually you'll get more followers, and there'll be more frequent visitors of your website and your social media. If you don't engage with them, you don't get feedback, then they might look at your social media, but it's not going to grow.
No, exactly. So asking questions, super important. When people answer, reply. Acknowledge the answer, right? Acknowledge the answer.
Reply to every single one of them individually.
Yes. So I see that too. Like, oh, somebody answered me last week. I didn't know what to say. I haven't replied back. Somebody asked me a question about my art. What do you mean you waited a week, right? This is the era of instantaneity. Like, you have to answer now. You have, like, I'm not saying in the minute, but you have to, there's momentum, right? If someone's interested now, you need to answer them very soon. Otherwise, you're going to lose the momentum with them, right?
24 hours if possible.
Exactly. Yes. So you don't have to spend all your time on social media, but allocate some time every day, right? To be on there and engage. I would rather you post less, right? And we talked about this in the workshop. Post less often, but engage more. Because your posts will be seen by more people, and you will get more results out of the post that you're doing, instead of spending all your time posting, but you're not building anything.
Yeah, very true.
So I think the biggest takeaway here is, like, whether it's online or offline, it's about growing those relationships, right? Building relationships with people who could be buyers and people who could be partners, like art advisors or galleries. And now we have a tool, right? We have a tool called the internet that gives us the possibility of doing it much more easily, much more frequently. We just have to learn to use it in our advantage. So any other words of wisdom? I want to be respectful of your time, but thank you so much, Laetitia, for being here with us. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk with artists today. If artists want to see your website, learn more about how you serve your clients, where can they find you?
My website, it's llarts.com. And from there, you can find Instagram, you can find everything.
Okay, so llarts.com. So LL for Laetitia Lina arts.com. So thank you so much, Laetitia, and hopefully you'll join us maybe on our Facebook group at some point and come chat with artists. But I really appreciate you taking the time today, and speak to you soon.
You're welcome. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.